Hello and welcome back to Hindsight is 50/50. I'm the host J-Rod with my co-host, the ORG old retired guy. Dad, how you doing?
I'm good. It's been a long time. We took
It
a
has.
hell. We
Seems like
took
we
a
say
hell.
that a lot.
We took a hell of a break. Well, yeah,
Life
it does.
happens.
It does, and um, we really. I want to get back to doing this regularly. I do. Every couple weeks would be fine with me. Um, but you're right. I mean, it hasn't been for lack of. I mean, we haven't just been sitting around.
Yeah.
But everybody's got stuff to do. But
Well,
yeah,
unfortunately we're both in the needy stage of life. So like your mom is
yeah,
old and by herself and is in need, and so you're constantly running to them. And I have two very young children, as well as my brother, who practically lives next door, has two very young children. And between those four kids, we're constantly trying to help each other with the little kids being in need. And we're running in 8 different directions. And I've got, taekwondo today and t-ball tomorrow with preschool and young fives, and, darting back and forth. And so when my schedule finally lines up, your mom needs something and your schedule doesn't line up. Like, we're just
it,
in that stage of dancing
it,
around.
and it's hurt us a few times. That's hurt us a few times. But we just both have to be more diligent. I mean,
Yeah.
we can get an hour, and I like doing it, and hopefully people like hearing it. And yeah, but you're right. I mean, life does get in the way. Plus, I mean, summer's always busy. And summer obviously is definitely over in Michigan. Um, we hadn't talked since before football started. So what? Michigan's played 9 games in a bye week, so it's been almost 3 months since
Yeah, but
we.
that's nothing to talk about. They suck.
Well, again, that's fair. I was just using them as an example of how many games they've played. So
That might
college
be
football.
why we haven't been talking.
Well, that's fair. That could be a contributing factor too.
It's like, so did you watch them suck this week? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you feel bad
yeah.
this weekend too? Yeah.
Good talk.
I will. I do want to say this though. I was fortunate enough to go to the Michigan State night game, and that was actually one of their better games of the season, and that was a riot.
Well,
I mean, that was way
and
cool.
again, as a Michigan fan, they won that night, but the big house. I mean, and that was Melissa. That was your wife Melissa's first time at
Yes,
the big
and
house,
it
right?
was like,
And it was on your
yeah,
anniversary, or
yeah.
okay.
So actually, my neighbor, his wife is a orthopedic surgeon for U of M, so she has season tickets. And the day of, he had something come up and he couldn't go, and he asked me if I could use the tickets. And I was like, hell yeah, it's our anniversary. Like, this is a win. And that wasn't even like me being a guy. Like, I love the big house, but I'd rather be comfortable at home eating my food that's a lot cheaper,
Oh, me too.
sitting in a seat that actually fits me and actually getting to sit. Because when you go to the big house, and I'm sure a lot of other football stadiums are like this, but when you go to the big house, it's at least 110,000 people, and it is standing room only. Like, you sit during the TV commercials, and that's it for the 4 or 5 hours you're there.
Yeah,
And so it's exhausting.
yeah.
Um, but it wasn't even me being a guy's guy. She really wanted to go, and he goes, "Are you sure she's gonna be okay with this on your anniversary?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think she'd kill me if I turned it down. This has been top of her list for a couple of years now." So not only did we get to go, but you know, State's not doing very well this year, and
Right.
Michigan's not doing very well this year. So although they're both bad, what quote unquote bad teams, they were equal playing field. So it was actually a really good game.
Yeah.
And then when
Competitive.
you throw in the night game at U of M, it's just so cool because it's like you're sitting in a theater, you know, when all the lights go out and then the screen comes on for like a premiere or something. That's how it is. It just gets pitch dark in there. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden the lights start flashing maize and blue, and then something comes on the Jumbotron, and the experience of that, and for Melissa to be able to experience specifically the intensity of the night game versus just the standard day game, I thought was way cool for her first experience. It also helps that you can now have alcohol at college games, so it was a little more fun. But um, it was just,
I'm just happy for her because I know how much she wanted to do that. And
and
the
the
fact that
environment was awesome.
that's just like that's good karma that all that happened. It
Yeah,
is. It's just that, your neighbor called and couldn't use the tickets and it happened to be your anniversary. It happens that she desperately wanted to go to a Michigan game and hadn't done it yet. And because again, you guys got little kids and all that. So it was just, that's way
and you
cool.
guys happened to be watching the kids, so we didn't even have a babysitter,
Yeah.
or like we didn't have to go find one. I mean,
Yeah. It was all good.
and
It was
then
all
Jacob
good.
ended up being there as well with his son,
Oh yeah, that's right. Jacob and Jackson went.
and we sat like, so we were a little bit closer to the 50-yard line, but we were on one side of the student section, and they were directly on the other side, so we could actually like look at each other. It was pretty cool.
Be darned. Oh, I knew they were there. I didn't even know what the proximity of your guys' seats, but that's cool. And and that kind of takes us into one of the topics I had on the list today was just college football in general. We're in the first year of the 12-team playoff. Obviously, teams in Michigan are not of concern, certainly this year. But you've got Oregon ranked number one. Georgia obviously is Georgia. Notre Dame's in there. I saw the full list and don't have it memorized, but I I'm really, we've talked about how much I'm concerned about this NIL thing and about the impact it's going to have, and it's already having it. It's already having it. You had a quarterback leave mid-season, an undefeated team at UNLV because he felt his NIL deal agreement wasn't lived up to. He was shorted, I don't know, a couple $100,000. And again, not trying to put too local of a spin on it, but the number one rated, or at least in some recruiting services, the number one rated quarterback in the whole country is from Belleville, Michigan. And depending on the service you follow, if you're into that kind of thing, he might not be number one in all of them, but I guarantee he is very high in all of them. And he had committed to LSU a verbal commitment a long time ago. Well, now Michigan, with their quarterback situation they found themselves in this year, which, that's a whole different topic for a different day. They're going after this kid, and they're putting together NIL monies that would, for 2 to 3 years of service, could be getting in the neighborhood of $4 to $5 million.
Yeah, I heard between LSU and Michigan, it had just passed over 5 million recently. The offer.
And again, there's a lot of stuff to me that's wrong with the NIL, and it's too big to attack in one show or in one conversation. That sours my stomach. And again,
I
as a
think you take
Michigan,
the integrity out of the sport because it was
big
young
time,
tryhards, and if they made it to the NFL, then they got to be paid prima donnas. But
big time, big time.
for me, and this is, I'll keep it very brief, but what I wish they would do is, one, this is recruiting a payment. This is not name image likeness, because it's not directly correlated to jersey sales or how many games you've played when you're on national TV. This is just like, hey, get paid to come to this school. So I really don't think they put any boundary on NIL, which is kind of sad in and of itself. But the second part of it is, I think based off of the school you play and the TV deal they have, meaning how many times your name, your person would be on air, and jersey sales, all of that, I think should be put into a fund, and there's a percentage that you earn of that. And if you retire, if because of an injury, if you drop out, anything, there could be a percentage of that fund or the whole fund that you get from your name, image, likeness. If you go to the NFL, I think you would still get your check written to you, but it should be something for after you're done. And my personal opinion, although I'm sure it wouldn't be popular, is that you could tie that to graduating. So that way,
Yeah.
if you graduated early, you get that paycheck, even if you go to the NFL early. But if you decide to go to the NFL early and not finish school, that money stays, goes towards scholarships, whatever program you want. But I do think it should be a fund. And again, let's say you go to the NFL early and you don't graduate. By having that money stay with the school, I think it could go to support people who, they were a big star and played college football and then broke their neck, and all of a sudden it was over. And it's like that person's got medical bills to pay, that person's got a whole life change ahead of them. And I'm not saying we just like, hand stuff out to any freeloader or anything like that, but like this could be something that you can earn it through getting your degree, but anyone who didn't earn it, it would be almost a reserve fund to take care of those athletes who had a career ending injury or some special circumstance that didn't allow them to finish.
I just wish that the NCAA for once, and they have no authority anymore. The Big Ten and the SEC, and not necessarily in that order, are going to be running college sports. They already are, by and large. But the NCAA is famous for doing a ready, fire, aim, and they always do it. It's like they approve something like the transfer portal, like the NIL, and it's the Wild West, and people are going to take advantage of the lack of rules. So then they have to go back in after the fact and try to implement some restrictions or some controls, which they should have done before they ever said it's okay.
Well, and I think it's gonna
And
take
and
long to do that
oh,
too.
it no, I fully believe this, and I've said that on this podcast. The NCAA is they're a toothless lion. Okay, they are. They can be a pain in the ass still, but they're toothless because the Southeast Conference and the Big Ten Conference, and the Big Ten's coast to coast now, and that's a big deal. I mean, we think about that: Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, all the way to Rutgers in New Jersey. And, picking up Penn State along the way, Nebraska in the Midwest, Iowa in the Midwest. You got all the Michigan and Ohio schools. You got all the Illinois schools, Indiana schools. And it's like they're running college sports. They're going to, and the NCAA is sitting there. I just think the next step is that if they don't like this 12-team playoff, and they may not, maybe they'll want to go to 16, maybe they'll want to go to 24, I don't know. But this 12-team playoff is basically going to devalue conference championship games.
100%.
And that was a big moneymaker for the conferences. So they got to find a way to make more money to make up for that. So they'll do that by adding more teams to the equation. And if the NCAA balks, the Big Ten and or the SEC is going to say, F you, we're going to make our own governing body. We're going to have our own commissioner / czar of college athletics. And it's like they're already basically making up their own rules, but it's just going to be, it'll be all out and above board. I think in the not too far future, I really do.
Yeah,
And
I mean, like the playoff, that to me, like we're just gonna have to see how it goes.
yeah,
But with
no,
the
I agree.
NIL, my concern is that there's gonna be like a very long time for realistic regulations, just because, like you said, we came in as the Wild West, no rules.
Yeah.
And right now, I think the skewed perception is that we're kind of in a honeymoon phase. We're like, yeah, we've got all the issues with people leaving and the money stuff, but it's being overshadowed by the fact that, like, how many undefeated teams remain? Other teams are jumping up and biting teams that were, perennial teams that just stomped everyone out. Everybody's got at least one loss. Like, I know Oregon doesn't, and there's a couple other teams, but you get my point.
Indiana.
All the big schools, and then it's like, Ohio State beats Penn State the other day. So now Penn State's got a loss. Ohio State's got a loss. Alabama's got a couple losses. Georgia's got a loss. It's like,
Texas.
yeah, so Texas got a lot. So, I think people are going to go, see, it's good for competitive integrity. And that's going to overshadow some of the um, financial and attitude issues that are happening because these are still young kids. Um, I think it's going to overshadow that for a little bit in this honeymoon phase. And so I think it's going to take longer to get the regulations that probably need to be in place now to get this under control because, this is Pandora's box. It's open now, but we can try and crack the lid. But if we wait too long, it'll never happen.
Oh, I think it's exploded already. I think it's
I know, yeah, but I mean, we
cracking the
can try and
lid.
close
That
it back to
yeah,
a crack with
that's
some
fair,
regulations. But if
but
we
you're
wait too long,
but you're
y-
holding a giant at the door, you
yeah,
know? I
yeah.
mean, it's like you're outgunned here. And no, and Pandora's box is a perfect way to describe it. Because when you approve something, again, with little or no foresight into just being scared into approving it, which has happened to the NCAA a couple of times recently. You know, when I was a kid growing up, there wasn't there were very few transfers in college. If you transferred, basically to chase a coach or because you were homesick or whatever, you had to sit out a whole year before you could play. Now I'm not going along with that. I'm just saying that's how things were.
Right.
So, and for a long time, like if you got drafted by the Detroit Lions and you didn't want to play for the Detroit Lions, you didn't play. I mean, there wasn't free agency. There guys didn't move around.
You
Well,
also
now
couldn't like refuse the draft,
that's
really.
what I'm saying. There are guys right now who are playing for 4 and 5 college teams. You know that that doesn't help the. I'm sorry, that does not help the sport. It might help a team individually, but it doesn't help the following. It doesn't help the youth. It doesn't help the sport when you've got a quarterback who's played for USC, Pitt, Utah, Brigham Young, and whoever knows
Well,
else.
you know,
The big dude, what I can't think of his name. Ugalalele or whatever his name is. He started at Georgia. He was like one of the top recruits in the country. He transfers to Oregon State. He basically was getting beat out there. And then he transferred to Florida State, and now he's beat out there. And
yeah,
it's like, my dad always called those guys with all, all those consonants in their names.
yeah,
He
yeah,
always
yeah.
called them alphabet, or
Tamanga, Biaka Patuka,
yeah, or vowels.
Akaika, Alama
But
Francis.
yeah, Dad always called them alphabet guys like that. But again, I don't want to stay too long on this topic because it's a
Well,
big
one
one.
thing I want to
I'm
throw
just
out before we shift,
sure, sure.
I think there's something, it's the integrity of loyalty in a sport is what, in my opinion, keeps tradition alive. There's a lot of people that follow swimming and tennis and golf and all that, but these are individual athletes. But the sports with very big followings have a fan base that follows a team, and you like to see a consistent face of a great athlete or multiple great athletes on that team, and you build loyalty to the point where we've even talked about it in the past. Sometimes you keep somebody too long because you're too loyal.
Yep.
But that to me is what not only keeps sport a great pastime, but also keeps them current is people love loyalty not only in the fan base, but in their athletes. And with this NIL, I think we are showing showing how volatile the market is for young athletes to them at an early age. So they're learning, oh, I can get more money if I just keep hopping around. This is the Darrell Revis 1 year contract stuff.
And
I can
and
just keep making more money if I keep jumping around. And my problem is not only are you going to do that in college, but that's gonna make it I think it's gonna make the loyalty in the NFL worse because people are gonna go, "Yeah, I can live in 8 different cities over the next 10 years and still make millions, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this because they don't care if they establish roots in a community anywhere because they're used to jumping around for the money." And I think if you instill that as a core value in young kids that are 18 to 21 years old, as they get older and move into professional sports, it's just going to be the lifestyle they're used to. So there's not going to be that loyalty to stick around and help rebuild the team or, be part of a city community and maybe I'm a little too stuck on that, but I really do think that's going to be detrimental to the sport because again, when I say I'm too stuck on it, it's like that's kind of what the Lions are. Like we have been a loser for a long time and we're doing good now, but there are certain people that have come back and just been like, there's nothing like Detroit. I love Detroit. And there's a loyalty there where you love them back because of it. And these young
sure.
athletes, I don't think are going to have that as a value if they're just being shopped around for the most money all the time.
Well, and if they get benched for 2 games, then they transfer.
Yeah, everyone's going to be a prima donna. And I
Yeah,
just,
yeah. And this is they're making it too easy. I had this
And you're gonna
conversation with
ruin young lives from it too, I think,
I
because there will
I
be guys who think they're great, and
well,
they're
that's
just not
it.
there, and they don't settle, and when they
That's
burn
it.
out, there's gonna be more and more that fizzled out, and they didn't get a good education along the way.
Well, that's exactly it. To me, and I had this conversation with with my dentist while I'm in the dentist chair, like last
Aha,
night.
aha,
Yeah,
aha.
yeah. But it's like, you know, there are reasons to transfer. The NBA used to have a rule that was called the hardship rule. You could leave college if you qualified for a hardship. Well, that just kind of got abused and people found loopholes around it. And then it got to be, once you can come to the NBA out of high school if you're good enough, you know. And so
Right.
the NBA they tried it but but if there is a true hardship, like you want to, I go to LSU and I'm a good player and I like it there fine. But all of a sudden my mom is really sick and I at least want to be within earshot of her. And, I'm a young athlete. So my mom's like in her 40s. So I want to move back to Michigan to be close to my mom. That's a qualifying hardship. Another thing is if the coach that recruited you leaves, you should be able to transfer. If he leaves, and in my mind, you should be able to transfer. And I'm sure there are other scenarios that would make sense, but off the top of my head, those are two that would make sense. Not, I didn't get enough PT, so I'm transferring. Or I'm mad at the coach, so I'm transferring. Or they just signed a 5-star quarterback and I play quarterback, so I'm transferring.
I
And
think
it's
that's why
like,
we're running into the quarterback crisis in the NFL that we're in.
I don't,
Because nobody has to develop while they're in college and sit behind someone, gain experience and knowledge of the game. It's like if I don't play and just use my athleticism instead of my brain, then I'm out. And it's like, okay, but now we don't have any cerebral quarterbacks out there. We just have super good athletes. And then we go, how come the completion percentage is so low? The interception rate's so high? Because nobody knows how to read a fucking defense.
Well, you know, there's a lot of things wrong with college sports, and I just think
It's,
the NIL and the transfer portal have both done a great deal of damage to the sport. I
yeah. And
really do.
it, it is confusing to me on the most fundamental level of the NIL is that it's like, okay, you want to get paid for your name, image, likeness. Great. What the fuck is a stipend? Sorry about my language, but what's your stipend that pays for your food and things you want to do that you're getting that check every month, as well as a scholarship full ride to get an education that if you get it at a major university, it almost guarantees you a great future career, even if you don't play a sport. What what is that? If that's not paying for your name, image, and likeness by paying for your school and
Yeah,
giving you a check to get by through school,
I get it.
what is that?
No, I get it. I get it.
That's just like the cherry on top now because, you know, like here's the messed up scenario, and I know I'm diving into it again, but like Texas is a prime example. Ewers is a Heisman candidate. He's making $1 million. Arch Manning's sitting on the bench making 3 million
Yeah.
because of his last name. Now, he's
Well,
a
he's
hell of an
pretty good
athlete,
too.
don't get me wrong, but the reason his number is higher is because of his last name, because Ewers was a hell of an athlete too, but
Well,
what
Ewers
he
got
didn't
a
have the
million bucks guaranteed before he went to Ohio State.
but I'm just saying, like, the notoriety level difference
Oh, for sure. Yes.
for
I
Arch Manning, it
absolutely.
just was so
He's got the
like, y
pedigree. Yeah.
yeah, and don't get me wrong, the kid's a stud, I'm not saying he's not, but you have a backup
Right.
making more money than your starter. And even though he's good enough to be your starter, he's not. So he's not taking the hits, he's not taking the pressure, and he's sitting there making more money. And it's like, you don't think kids are gonna have a problem with this in the future? Like, oh, hold on. How come he's making more money than me? I mean, we've talked about this in the NFL when you got athletes making substantially more than coaches. It's like, how do you control their egos? And we've seen that there are times where you can't. Well, there's a hell of a lot more student athletes in college than there are professional athletes. It's like we're just going to watch this escalate until it's completely out of control if somebody doesn't establish a baseline of rules.
To be
Um,
continued.
yeah, but I,
'Cause it
yeah,
is.
that's fair. But
It's a big there's a
but
lot there. There's a
before
lot to
we
talk about.
shift into personal and family, because I'm sure there are some people that don't care about sports as much and they want to hear that. Since we're on the topic of football, I know that you have wanted to talk about the Lions briefly. Um, I think we kind of covered that Michigan sucks. So
Sure.
unless there's something specifically you wanted to throw out there about Michigan, I'm good to move straight to the Lions.
No, and the Lions, I'm sure everybody, if you're any kind of a football fan, you've heard the story. We've sucked for years.
The lovable loser.
Last year we laughable loser, I think. We weren't even the Cubs, the lovable losers. We are the laughable ones.
Well, when
And
Orlovsky runs out the back of the end
that's
zone,
what I'm
you are the
saying.
laughable loser.
It's just there's a whole different culture in town. Obviously, they're good. We'll see how good they are. They've had some injuries. I mean, losing Hutch for the year, that sucks. But they just made a really good trade, I think, to try and get some of that production back that they lost with Hutch. Um, I love the way this team plays. We've talked about this before, and again, without going into it too much, I just think the culture has really changed here, and it shows. And because these last two wins, that Green Bay score was 24-14, but that game wasn't that close.
Right.
The Lions had if they would have kept their foot on the pedal, that game could have been 31 or 38-14. and it's like, or maybe even to 10 or to
I just
7.
love that they stand by it. Where Campbell's like, "We'll play you anywhere, any conditions.
Yeah,
Well, we are the team we are. It doesn't matter what we play in," and then they proved it.
and they've got these guys that genuinely seem to love each other and want to play for their coaches. And you look at
That's
that
the
coaching
biggest
staff,
difference to me is that Campbell
but
said, "I will do anything for you if you're all in for me, for this team."
yeah,
And everyone on the team seems to be all in.
yeah, and the coaches, a lot of their coaches, Antoine Randall, Aaron Glenn, and others are former players. Hank Fraley, they're former NFL players. Dan Campbell was one who I loved him as a
They're
player.
also tough as nails
That's
former
what I'm
players.
saying.
Like, it's not just some guy. I mean, these guys were known for their grittiness.
Yeah, it's been fun, and it's obviously we've had at least a year of it now, which you're kind of in no man's land as a Lions fan because you don't know how to act when you're actually good, and they seem good, and it's just been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, you're kind of hesitant because you are waiting for the other shoe to drop, but you're
Yeah,
also
yeah,
hesitant because you've watched other people be arrogant and you don't want to come off as that asshole. And you're like, but hold on, I'm supposed to enjoy this, right? Like,
right.
this is a good thing.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
So,
you really, and you're almost afraid to.
but one thing
Yeah.
I love about the Lions, and it goes back to Campbell. One thing that I saw the other day, and we've seen it since Campbell's been here, but it's the blocking downfield.
Oh yeah.
And I saw a clip that I had not seen before, and I've watched Dan Campbell highlights, and it's maybe everybody likes it. I don't know, or maybe you got to be a special type of person, like a special brand of football to enjoy it. But he didn't ever do anything flashy. It was almost like you were watching this like half coordinated brick run down the field. But when he made a play, you just felt good for him because you knew the effort and compassion was there. And I saw him as I believe a position coach when he was in Miami, and he has a tight end that runs down the field, and another receiver had caught the ball, and the tight end's actually about 15 or 20 yards deeper than that receiver, and he kind of just loafs, and a couple people like the safeties come in, they make the tackle, all that, and Campbell is fired up. And he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "We don't just walk out there and run like nothing's going on." He's like, "We block." He goes, "You drop a ball, who fucking cares? But when your teammate catches it, you block, you block, you block." And then it flashes forward to like a quarter later in the game, and a receiver catches the ball on a slant, and that tight end just destroys the safety. And Campbell's headset flies off like he's jumped. He's like, "That's what I'm talking about," and just all that passion, and the fact that he's not talking out of both sides of his mouth. He doesn't care if you have a drop. He wants you to compete as a team and play as a team, and then he supports you when you do. I think that's what rallies people, and the whatever administration he has, the skill coaches, the coordinators, himself, the GM, and whatever Spielman's role is in it. The one thing that I feel like we're seeing that is very exciting that we've not seen in the Lions, or I never saw it. I don't think you saw it. They understand the importance of positions playing well together. We don't have to have the best athlete in each position. We need to have the best teammate that's an athlete in each position. And so they're building a team that plays together. Like it if we start from scratch, as incredible as Goff's numbers have been, physically, I don't think he's nearly as gifted as Stafford was. He's a very good quarterback, but Stafford, when Stafford was young and healthy, had a
Stafford still
cannon.
got a frickin'
Yeah.
cannon.
And I mean, that's after the shoulder injuries. But when he was young, he had, not only did he have some wheels on him and toughness, he had one of the strongest arms I've ever seen. and he was incredibly accurate. He could throw any route on the field coming out of college, which is just pretty rare to have velocity on some of those deep throws. But it's not close. But when you look at it, you go, well, how the hell didn't we win with Stafford? And not only is the team not the same, we didn't build it around him, but I don't know what the mentality difference is with golf, but that staff does.
Oh yeah,
And whatever
yeah.
he's got it in spades. They love it. And he brings this team together where it's like he might crumble somewhere else. I don't know. But even if we had a more physically talented quarterback, I don't think we'd be doing as well. It's like these guys understand what it takes to build that like continuity in the team, that to make them come together and have one belief as a unit. And I absolutely love it. It's my favorite thing to watch. I love watching their post game celebrations and Campbell's speeches and his passions. And it's just been so fun and exciting. And it's way cool. And, you know, another great example of that is them having Gibbs and Montgomery work together. And then those guys end up like loving each other like big brother, little brother. But they're nicknamed Sonic and Knuckles now. And it's like the fact that neither one of them had an ego to have to shine brighter than the other. They can have a competition to push each other, but at the end of the day, they both want each other to succeed. I just think that's so cool. I really do.
The management team again, with the coaches being a lot of the coaches being former NFL players. You know, John Dorsey is a senior executive with the Lions, an advisor. John Dorsey was the GM of the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, when they drafted Pat Mahomes, and of the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Cleveland Browns had some ownership problems, but I think John Dorsey drafted Myles Garrett. So he's got an eye for talent, even though those guys, you know, I mean, Mahomes was in the first round. Myles Garrett, I believe, was number one. And then you've got Spielman in there who, like I said, I'm convinced his imprint is on this team. And I think if you looked at those two guys, if you looked at Campbell and Spielman, they're kindred spirits. They might not have been the best athlete in the world, but you got every ounce of effort on every play. And they want players like that. Then you throw in Holmes, who I think he and Campbell are on the same page as, again, the kind of guys they want in the locker room. It's all been a lot of fun, and I just, you know, it'll be interesting this year and fun to follow it if I can let myself just truly enjoy it.
I
Because
still find myself
good.
nervous.
Oh, I do too. I
Every
lots
game,
of
it's like,
times tape the
oh
games
shit.
and then watch them later. I do. I do it because I get so amped up, and it's not good for me. But
Well,
anyway,
before they had a big trade. Do you want to cover that real quick?
yeah, I mean, it was. I thought it was a good trade. They, you know, with Aiden gone, they needed they needed edge rushing help, and they picked up Zadarius Smith, who is currently with the Brown, or prior to being with the Lions was with the Browns. That's who they made the trade with.
And it
They
didn't
traded
cost them an arm and a leg.
a 5th-round pick this year, a 6th-round pick next year, I believe, for a 7th-round pick next year, and Ladarius Smith. So, and Holmes is very good at drafting late in the draft.
And
So,
we've also been very good. One thing you and I didn't cover in pre-discussion, but very good at adding depth to our team.
oh yeah,
And
but
so this to me, where we talk about his age being 32, and you know, if
yeah,
you can make it work, you would extend his contract in the future. When Aiden comes back, you know, you've got an every down guy, but when you're rotating the other side or people in the middle, it's like if this guy's still remaining to be a stud, Zadarius Smith, then you know, you just added a lot more depth for probably, you know, not an insane amount of money.
it was a good trade. Something they really needed to do it because they hadn't had a sack by a D lineman since Hutchinson was hurt. Now they had sacks, but they were blitzing sacks,
You got
linebackers
that
and
Jared
D-backs.
Allen motor, man. You can't
And
replace it.
you know, so anyway, I think it was a good trade. It was something they needed to do, and and it sounds like he's that culture guy. He's that kind of guy. And I believe, when I hear about all these trades, I just laugh. It's like they'll say, who's the Devontae Adams? I go, well, man, why don't the Lions get Devontae Adams? It's
He
like
doesn't
Devontae
work.
Adams is still a really good receiver. But again, I don't care who the guy is.
He gets chewed
If
up and spit out here.
if he doesn't fit in the room, they're not getting him.
Right.
And I'm not saying he doesn't, but I trust them to make that judgment. Yeah, I don't know Devontae Adams, but I'm saying our management team does, and they know the kind of person he is. And
Well,
before they
speaking
would trade for somebody, they would find out more. And it's just like when I hear them talk about, get this guy, it's like, wait a minute. I mean, these guys clearly are not going to get a guy if he doesn't fit our culture. And talent be damned. And
right.
you know what? It's working pretty good so far, so I'm not going to bitch.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bitch. Hey, I wanted to talk about something that we all did together back in August. And I don't know about you, but it was, I mean, I still tell stories about it. And I still share at least one video about the vacation.
Do you just talk about the fucking bear that's out there or the badass storm?
Well, the storm gets mentioned, but the video of the bear gets shared a lot. And people that I show it to, I know share it because they can't believe it. But for those people listening, it was towards the end of August. You, your wife, your two kids, Jacob, his wife, their two kids, and your mom and I all went. We rented this big lot. It was a lodge. It wasn't a cabin. I mean, that place was a lodge. It was huge, down in the Smokies. And I don't know about you. I know we had a power outage in a bad storm, and that sucked. But I thought that place was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I
what
really,
it was 7 beds, 3 down in a finished basement, 2 on the main level. One of the basement ones was a master, 2 on the main level were a master, and then we had 2 beds in a loft, with a gorgeous view of the mountains. And although it was a little bit tedious at times, a fantastic drive up
oh,
kind of a trail of a mountain to get there.
it was great. That drive was nuts. And I mean, it was all paved, but that drive was
And
nutty.
what made it really nuts was after the storm with all the shit on the road.
Yeah,
Because,
that's true.
I mean, you guys went out the next day when some of it was cleaned up, but I went out to try and get us flashlights and stuff that night. And oh my goodness, crap was everywhere.
Yeah, but what a beautiful place. We had 2 bear encounters at the lodge. One on the deck, after Jacob and Jennifer had cooked steaks. And again, they didn't do anything wrong. They cleaned up. Well, the next morning, Jennifer goes out to start reading her book in one of the chairs out on the deck. And all of a sudden she comes in, she goes, "There's a fucking bear."
Yeah, it's just walking up near down the
And it was
balcony
sniffing
or
around the
porch.
grill. And, and I ended up having to spray it because it kept coming closer. And, you could tell, and I know you didn't like that, and that's okay. People were feeding them. That's all
Oh
that
yeah.
bear wanted, but you're not supposed to do that.
Well, no, and I mean, there's no judgment here. Like, I think everybody's got to do what they're comfortable with in that situation. So for me, it wasn't that I like necessarily didn't like that you sprayed the bear. I just thought he was going to come up to the glass, and since we had the door closed, I was like, I'm just going to take pictures. I wasn't really concerned, but it's like, if you're concerned, then you got to spray the bear. Like, I don't hold that against you.
And then the next morning, a different bear comes walking up to your mom's van while she's organizing stuff in the van. And I mean, put her inside the van. It didn't like charge or anything, but it was sniffing around. People are feeding them clearly. And there's signs all over, and everything that you read says don't do that. But you can tell those bears, like the one that was walking towards me at the glass door, the bear just was expecting me to give it something to eat.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't aggressively pursuing me. He was just walking towards me like, "Where's my treat?" And you're not, you know, I just that's how bad shit happens. And it's like because people do stuff like that. And you can't count on nobody doing it because they will. It's like
Well, and it's between the people who are hand feeding them and the idiots who leave their trash out.
right.
So those bears are being fed 24/7. But we actually had another, I guess, near miss, if you want to call it that, because there was the night that um, we woke up and a bear had climbed over top of Jacob's truck
Oh
and then
yeah, that's
actually
right.
dented his tonneau cover to try and get in the trunk, even though nothing was in there. And then when we went to, was it Anarchista?
Yeah, Anarchista.
When we were riding the bus back down, the shuttle bus back down, we had to stop, and a bear was like climbing under the lift rides, just walking around. I actually saw another video, two videos. One was a bear, actually three videos. One was a bear in the parking lot we parked in when we took our motorcycle trip there in Gatlinburg. Another one was a different parking area in Gatlinburg, and then the third video was a bear climbing on the rooftops of all the shops in Gatlinburg. That just happened this past week.
Wow.
Yeah, they're
No,
all over. It's pretty
it
cool
was
though.
it was great fun, and I mean, Anarchista. I mean, again, it's almost I find myself kind of like laughing at myself because it's so touristy. I mean, obviously that's how everybody makes their living, and it's like tourist trap after tourist trap, and I'm going to them, and I
Yeah,
mean, I'm enjoying it. I mean, I enjoyed Anarchista, and really all it was the lift ride up, which is cool, and there was stores when you got up at the top. We did that. I don't know what that bridge walk or the walk amongst the trees or something like that.
yeah,
And I mean
yep,
that was kind of cool. But yeah, it was all worth doing. We went to the Dolly World water park. It was a great day. That was a fantastic day. I
yeah.
think
I'd have been happy doing what you guys did, but instead I ended up like walking up mountains and shit too,
what
because
it,
my
oh,
wife's an adventurer.
when was that?
I mean,
Oh,
on the days where we were by, like, we went out to Laurel Falls and we went to
okay,
Klingman's Dome, and it's like,
okay,
I'm a big guy,
yeah.
and that is a like Klingman's Dome isn't that bad. It's like straight up. Um, a lot of people were struggling with breathing because the air gets so thin. Um, because I'm a shallow breather, I didn't notice. I actually thought I could breathe just fine, but like, um, just like calves and all that walking up, but that was kind of tiring. And unfortunately, we got all the way to the top, and then you're supposed to be able to see like so many 100 miles in 7 different states or something like that. And we get up there, and it's fog. You couldn't see 3 feet of shit. And I was like, well, this was fantastic. But then Laurel Falls, we walked up this tiny little broken trail to go to a waterfall, and I mean, holy shit! Like, it you're just sitting there going, "Well, why are we doing this?" Like, we're just continuously and then it's like, it says it's for people of all ages, but then there's signs that are, like, on the side of the trail. This trail is, I don't know, 3 feet wide, and it used to be paved, but it's, like, 70% broken. So you're walking on, like, 6 inches of pavement or in potholes.
There's a painted symbol of a guy clutching his chest.
No, there's little signs that says, like, falling death area, And then there's warnings that it's like children have fallen and died. And it's like, well, how come you're telling this near the top? What, we already brought our kids. You said it was a family thing at the bottom. Now that we're at the top, it's like everybody can die. Cool. And then you realize that, like, yeah, and you've seen it on the way up anyways, but like, when you go stand near the edge, because like you got to walk the other way coming back down. It's like, dude, if I rolled my ankle, I wouldn't stop falling for like fucking 3 minutes. Like, this is insane.
Well, one of the things that we did that it was we went to that lumberjack feud that was Paula Dean's,
Yeah.
and the food was amazing. I mean, you literally get a hot lunch, and on a heavy duty plastic tray, everything's covered. It's in compartments. I mean, and there was pulled pork and beans, and there was some kind of a prune cobbler that was great. It was just all southern cooked things. And I mean, you literally, like, you can eat it before you go in, before the show starts, if you want, or you can take it in, and it's like bleacher seating. And, and it's all the timber sports, where they run up the logs and
Yeah,
they
oh my,
do the log
those pole
rolling.
races are incredible.
It was nuts. And those guys, they were pretty good. That was actually, I mean, if it wasn't my favorite, it was in the top. I'm going to remember it for a long time because of it was good entertainment and the food was fantastic. But I just had a lot of fun. I did. It was fun to be with the kids. It was fun to sit at the dinner table with them and, and talk with
And
them.
if we
And
ever go back, you got to rent a Jeep with us.
oh, that was
That
the biggest
was
mistake that I made.
phenomenal.
That I rented the UTV because I wanted to do that for a variety of reasons, but I absolutely
So did I, but
if
I
I
kept
ever
pleading with Melissa. I was like, it's going to be so loud, you're going to be miserable. And she
it
would not listen.
it
And
was
the
that.
night before, she fought with me, but we switched to the Jeeps. And it was the
That was
best
a good
choice we made.
call because we took ours back early and we only got it for 5 hours and
Yeah.
we took
Well,
it
when
back
you're
early.
on like a Razor 1000 with no exhaust on it, like it's just, oh my
The
God,
whole
those things
thing
are so
it
loud.
rode rough. I Look, I had multiple reasons for doing that. I wanted to see, okay, like when there comes a day when I'm not riding a motorcycle anymore, would
Right.
I get one of those? And I can tell you right now, the answer is no. Too loud, too rough. If I'm going to go four wheels, I'll get a whole lot more comfortable than that
Yeah,
was.
or just buy a slingshot if you want something
Well,
sporty. Like,
I just, yeah, I'm not. But again, that was part of the reason. But those Jeeps that you guys had looked cool.
I'm not kidding. I wanted to do the same thing in case we ever wanted one of those off-road buggies. And I like when we got down there and I found out the Jeeps were an option, I pleaded with Melissa so hard. And at first she was not happy, but she was thrilled that we switched after the day that we had because we stayed with Jacob and Jen, went a lot of places, but also you guys obviously not having a great experience with it kind of gave her the confirmation she needed that we made the right choice. And the biggest thing with me is that I went back to when I, used to work for a gravel pit company. It's like, or a mining company. But whenever I rode in any type of ATV, it's like that's a helmet and earplugs all day because and I know you don't have to wear a helmet like in these on road ones, but you're still going to be bouncing around. You may have wanted one anyways, but I don't want to be wearing earplugs all day because it's so goddamn loud.
Well,
And when
you
we got in the
couldn't you
Jeeps, it was
couldn't listen to the
fantastic.
stereo because it was too loud to listen. The whole thing was not cool. It just again, it served a purpose in that I know I don't want one.
Yeah, and but honestly, that's a great way to get a decision. I mean, that's like I did the same risk when we went to Tennessee on our motorcycle trip. I have never ridden a Harley. I know they look good. I know they sound good. Um, but I didn't know if it would have the same kind of creature comforts that my Hondas have had. And so I ended up getting that Heritage or renting it, and I knew that I was risking, like, if this doesn't fit me, I'm gonna be miserable on this whole trip. But I wanted to know that if ever given the opportunity, would I enjoy a Harley as my own bike to ride for a long time? And luckily it worked out, but I knew that was a risk going in. So I mean, I think it's unfortunate that it wasn't fun for you, but that's the best way you can do it because you actually have time to figure out if it's worth it or not. It's not just some short little test ride.
They always say that people, like lots of times, I mean, you hear stories about it. People will go on vacation to a place and they just love it. And they do their best to move there. Well, you forget when you visited there, you were on vacation. When you're living there, you just like going to work every day, and
Well,
so
and you also
a lot
just
of
stole
things
your
aren't the same.
vacation. Where do you go to take a break now?
But I
By the
mean,
way, when talking about Tennessee, just because I do want to get on your motorcycle in a sec, but my probably my favorite thing, just because of the boys' reaction when we were in Anakista and we did the mountain coasters. Uh, I hate roller coasters, absolutely hate them. But for some reason, the mountain coaster didn't bother me at all. And both of my sons, especially JJ, but both of my sons were like, floor it. And so you're in a seat going down these coasters where it's like gravity fed, but you have two handles that you can pull them up to brake to slow down. And I mean, my kids are slamming around between my knees, like one at a time, obviously, but like they might get a concussion off of my knee and they're like, faster. And so we're not braking down this entire mountain. It's like, ah, all right, here we go.
that's
And we're
funny.
just hauling ass. And it was so much fun.
That's funny. That's funny. I mean,
And
it
that's
is.
one of those core experiences that it's like, I'll remember it forever. And I'm glad I didn't miss it.
Well, if they're old enough, and JJ is for sure, he'll remember it too. He is. I mean, I struggle with that because I don't know when my earliest memory of something is. I think it was when I was around 3, but I'm not really sure. I could have been 4. But yeah, JJ will remember it. Because he's 5, he'll remember it. That's for sure. But yeah, when you talk about the Harley, it's like I had been. I've had Hondas, still got one. Um, I've had them for a long, long time, and always loved them. And I always thought Harleys looked good, and I always thought some of them sounded good. I don't like removing all the baffling and making them super, super loud.
Yeah, I don't want to be
But
annoyed on a nice long ride.
yeah, and I had looked after a few years ago when we rented those the Indian motorcycles. I had rented a Springfield, and Jacob had a Springfield Dark Horse. And I had kind of looked at those, and there's not a lot of those used ones for sale, and the price is pretty high. And I'm not going to buy a new one. I'm too old to spend 25 grand on a bike, or 30. And so, after we rode those Harleys last year in the Smokies, I liked the one I had too, and it was Ultra Glide Classic. And and I saw this. It was before we went on vacation. I saw this bike on Craigslist, and I actually went and looked at it, and it was reasonably priced, even with no negotiation. And I didn't negotiate. I just said, well, not right now. But I told him about you having a bike and that Jacob used to and Joe used to, and I know Jacob wants to get another one at some point. But so I had told him all the story. Nice guy, really nice guy. And he was frustrated with people, responding to his ad. He said, no trades. I just want cash. And he had it listed for a reasonable price. So I go look at it, and we have an hour and a half conversation that night. Just really nice guy. But I didn't buy it. And then we go on vacation. While we're on vacation, he's texting me responses that he's gotten from his ad. People are trying to trade him like a boat. One guy was trying to trade him a tractor. Another guy was trying to trade him a Ford Focus that needed something major done to it and a Harley that wouldn't run because whatever was wrong with it was over his head. But he figured the two of them were worth well more than the Electric Glide. And by the way, this was an Electric Glide Police Edition, which is black. It was a 2003. It had less than 12,000 miles on it. The bike was beautiful and pristine. So, I mean, the whole time down there, he's, sending me like every other day when we're on vacation. I'd get a text from this Roger guy. Again, really nice guy. And he's so frustrated with people, not reading the ad. He's like, do people read? So I get back. I don't think a thing about it. Again, he's just a nice guy. I thought he was just keeping in touch. He texts me one day. He goes, and he drops the price like $700. And again, I already thought it was a good deal. And I just said, man, I can't do that right now, but thanks. Couple more days go by. He texts me, he drops at 5. He goes, if you or your boys want it, you can have it cash, no negotiation. I've got a helmet I'll put with it. I've got, a couple of nice little additions, an extra windshield. All of that will go with it. He says, you or your boys, and he dropped it another $500. Well, and so then I'm thinking, and I told your mom, it's like, I'm going to text him back and offer him $500 less than that. I said, and if he takes it, I'm going to have to buy it because I love the bike. I mean, it's just I already have a bike. I really didn't need that one. But so anyway, I texted him and I ended up buying it. And the worst part is this is the second bike I've bought in the fall. And buying a bike in the fall sucks because you don't get to ride them very much before you got to put them away.
Yeah.
But I'm still holding out hope. It's still in the garage. But anyway, it's a 03 Electric Glide Police Edition. You've seen it. I mean, I love it. I really do. And
I just think it's cool the way you got it because there's, I think I told you like I bought a bow a year ago and I dealt with a guy in Arkansas and he ended up being like a really, really nice guy and we got to chatting and you could tell that like he wanted to sell it to me, not to someone else
right.
because of the rapport we had built. He wanted to sell it to me, but obviously he couldn't just give it away for nothing. And so we, stayed in touch with one another and then found a good price and I ended up buying that bow and it was a great deal. And I think that's what's cool about this motorcycle is that guy may have even got another offer. We don't know. But
I
it
don't know.
it seems like he like if I had to imagine him talking to his wife, he's going, I just really want to sell it to this guy. It's like I want it to be ridden. I don't want it to be wasted. He and his family got bikes. He's a nice guy. I'm tired of dealing with the bullshit, but I can't give it away for nothing. It's like if he offers me something that I can stand, I'm gonna have to take it because I want this bike to have a good home and I want to do business with good people. And it
It,
kind of I don't
I
know
don't know.
reaffirms that there's still good people out there.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
mean, just a super nice guy. Really. I mean, with the first night I called him about the bike, I mean, we talked for probably an hour on the phone, just bullshitting. And it was on like a Friday night. He's not married, he's got a girlfriend. He's like 62.
There you
He's
go.
got a grown son. He was having trouble getting on and off the bike because he's got to have a knee replaced and he thinks he's going to move on to a trike.
Ooh,
And I mean, to me, the bike's perfect. I mean, it's lighter than my 1800. I can move it around a whole lot easier.
shorter wheelbase.
It sits better for me than the 1800. And it's like a Harley, man. It looks great and it sounds great.
Well, the other
And
thing that's nice is even though it's not quite as long or as bulky as a bigger bike like an 1800, it still has big tires, which when you
yeah,
get near potholes or on graded bridges or anything, those are clutch.
and it's it has the police tires on it that don't go flat.
Yeah, I mean that's just cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's a beautiful bike and it's
Oh, it's gorgeous.
pristine. And
The
I've
seat's awesome too.
yeah, yeah, and it's got an air cushion seat. You can adjust the tension on the seat and the rear shocks.
The seat is like, I mean, I'm sure it's comfortable, but I obviously haven't ridden it, so I wouldn't know. But it looks comfortable, but it's just really cool because you're getting like the street glide vibe of the Harley, but you're getting like a panhead seat style or like an old Indian seat style, and that look
Like the
together
old
is like
bicycle
really
seat.
cool.
Yeah.
Like it's really really cool.
No, I'm in love with it. I am. I'm just I hope it turns out as good as it started because I'm enjoying the heck out of it. And
Me
it
too, because I'm gonna buy it one day.
and I actually I wasn't gonna go to Halloween. You guys did Halloween with the kids, which I think is fantastic. And you do it in the sub, like right next to you and the one Jacob lives in.
And we
Or
also did it downtown too.
oh, did you?
Yeah, we went on actual Halloween night downtown, all of us.
Okay, cool. Well, the night that we went was like the 27th at your sub, or the sub had it that Jacob lives in.
Yeah.
And I initially wasn't going to go because I had had a long day at my mom's earlier. And it was sunny, but it was kind of brisk. And I stopped at the dollar store on the way home, and I got one of those Jason masks from
Yeah.
Friday, from, was it Friday the 13th?
Yeah,
Jason
Jason
Voorhees.
Voorhees, Camp
Yeah.
Crystal Lake.
And it actually fit like under my helmet. So I got on the bike and rode that to Chelsea, rode that over to the sub where you guys were at, and with that mask on. And I just had a good time.
Oh
And
yeah.
I had a great time watching the
It's a
kids.
little different, like trick or treating in broad daylight, but it
It
still
is.
was nice because all the kids are so young. So,
And there's you can tell that whole community kind of gets into it.
oh, they
I
love
mean,
it, and Christmas is even bigger.
is it?
Yeah, Christmas, like you could make like a little tour around the entire sub. Everyone's trying to compete.
Yeah. Well, that's cool too.
Yeah,
But
actually, one of the older gentlemen that lives on the kind of like kitty corner from Jacob towards my house in that sub, his name's Sam, and I met him when we moved in. They're really nice family, but he's got a trail that he cuts and maintains through the woods. And this year, I think his wife had some health condition issues, so we didn't talk as much as we had previously. But I think upcoming, if he's still up to it, we're gonna try and decorate that trail like next Halloween and make it like a trick or treat stop where instead of just kids walking up and down, the little sidewalks to the house, because some of them or driveways are kind of a long walk to get to the candy if they didn't do it on the road. Because I mean these are large lot houses in a sub. It's
sure.
not the
Yeah.
super tight subs.
Yeah.
Um, So I had talked to him about it, and it's like, let's just get like the 3 or 4 houses around you and make like pit stops on this little trail where you're like got your little cauldron of candy or whatever, and people stop and trick or treat and walk through the woods, and he was all about it. So hopefully we can do that one of these
Nice.
upcoming years.
Well, and we can talk next week about the fall cleanup and the wrap up for the approaching winter. And I don't, like I said, I'm keeping the bike in the garage. I'm not putting it away yet for the winter because I was actually hoping to ride today, and I may. But I will say this: it was 58 degrees the day I rode to Chelsea, which I don't know how far that is from here, 15 miles maybe from our house to your house.
Yeah.
And when I and the sun was out, but I left and it was pushing dark. It wasn't dark, but it was starting to get dark. I got to tell you, man, I was cold coming home, and I had on leathers and everything. I'm just old enough where I can't stand a lot of cold
I
things.
think I'd almost prefer it, man. I want to wear a leather jacket, but it doesn't matter. It can be 40 degrees. I put a leather jacket on, I start sweating.
Yeah, well,
But no, I mean that's another cool thing though. Like, and I mean this just I guess as a motorcycle person myself, like you always like when other people like your bike. It makes you feel
oh yeah,
good about it. And
yeah,
so it's like when you rode it up and all the kids are there, it's like they're like motorcycle.
yeah,
It was pretty cool. They get all excited, and you've got essentially your new shiny toy to show to the kids who love new shiny toys.
sure.
So
No,
I
and
thought it was cool.
I will say this, and it's funny. Again, we've said for years they look great, they sound great, but that's the first Harley I've ever owned, and people notice you. They do. They notice the bike. I get comments on that bike every time I stop somewhere. Somebody will say something. Sometimes at a red light. It's just an eye catcher. And I mean, and even your mom wasn't like, oh, I mean, I already have a motorcycle. Now I'm going to sell the VTX in the spring. But, you know, it's not like I needed that. And but she didn't give me a hard time about it. But now that I have it, she loves it. She thinks it looks fantastic.
I mean, it's a great looking bike, honestly.
And
It is
I'm back
great,
to
and it sounds good too.
the theory I've always believed in. All motorcycles should be black, and that one's black. So I'm pretty happy with it. But anyway, that's all I had for today, bud.
No, that works for me. I mean, like you said, we'll go into spring cleanup and stuff next time. I'm sure. Um, Maybe next time if we have a little bit more, I guess, family talk, maybe we can get some pictures together or something. Um, as for right now, it's still going to be uploaded on YouTube. Don't know what's going on with Spotify, but if I figure it out, I'll let you know. But
How
other
about
than
the
that,
other ones? How about iTunes and all that?
it all goes through the Spotify Anchor account.
Oh, okay.
So YouTube's the only separate one. So since there's some sort of issue with our RSS feed, which is the link that it's the chain that links them all together.
All right.
Yeah, there's an issue with that. So right now it's going to be just YouTube unless I can figure out what's going on with Spotify.
Okay.
Um, so that is it's weird. It's not like the link's broken. It's
And
just a proof of ownership thing. And
we're
I've
still up
talked to
there on
people and I'm
YouTube.
trying to prove our ownership, but they just I don't know. It never gets back to me. So um but on that note, I guess I'm ready to head out. So to all of our listeners out there, I appreciate you guys listening. I know it's been a long time. Hopefully you're still sticking around and I'll check out future episodes to come. But be safe, be smart, make good choices, and peace out. Love you, Dad.
Love you too, buddy.
Bye bye.
Bye.